The last transition we're going to work on is what we call a speed or a baseball turn. It is a turn designed to obviously maximize our speed and protect the deep zones. We're going to start Dan out in the back pedal. He's going to open on a 45, gather his feet, and drive on another 45. All right. Again, trying to get the best turn situation in terms of covering the maximum amount of ground. Going back to it, Stephen, you can step up on this one. Again, like any transition, all right, we want to get a foot pointed in the direction we need to go to. Any transition to a different direction, again, we got to get the core of our feet underneath us. And the throttle down and the finish at the end. All right. Again, just like when we open deep, we're throwing that elbow to get us going in that direction. Again, every transition, we have to gather our feet. Every transition, we got to stick it and then get a foot pointed from a different angle. Next drill we're going to use is what we call the X drill. Really, it's focusing on the drive part of the transition. Now we're just going to be able to get that drive in both directions. Again, with our finish, we're going to finish with a tackle on air. Again, that drill allows us to get a transition to the right, a drive forward, a transition to the left. Stephen? You'll notice that Stephen in his back pedal does not use any arm action on the way back, but he used violent arm action on the way forward. Again, I'm not going to overcoach it. As long as everything maintains itself within the framework of the body, we're going to allow that. The key coaching points, again, is keep everything tight, stick it in the ground, and drive. Again, they're both executing the same techniques. They're doing it slightly different in terms of their arm action. Steve uses no arm action up above on the way back, but he's violent on the way forward. Dan uses a slight arm action on the way back, but again, he's violent on the transition forward. Next drill we're going to do is called the Quick X. Same exact goal of the drill, but again, we're working on violent arm action, quick transition, keeping our feet underneath us. Again, the main focus of this drill is to get rapid foot fire, to get them comfortable with their feet underneath them while accomplishing the same thing. It happens quick and then we move on. Next drill we're going to do is the M drill. The M drill is designed to, again, foster or coach the transition forward. The difference is Dan is visually going to be me on the coach. He'll be on a zone indicator, while Stephen will be visually burning his eyes on the hips of Dan, all right, on a man indicator. So visually we're training them to do the same thing physically. Visually they have different indicators. And finally we're going to finish with them scooping the football. So we're adding another element to the drill once we get through teaching great development of the transitional phases. And bend and scoop. You'll notice on the scoop that they'll use one hand to scoop through the ball. We really believe in scooping through the football with one hand and then securing with the other. The two things that does, it forces the ball, the momentum of the ball, away from potentially the opponent. The second thing it does, it allows you to bend a little bit deeper to secure that football. The next drill we're going to work on is called the ping pong drill, and it does exactly that. We're going to work on opening, just like we worked on earlier, but now we're going to do it 4 times. We're going to go down, back, down, and back, all right? The emphasis here is not on the speed so much as the technique. A lot of times in coaching, we tend to exaggerate our coaching points, and this is kind of what we're trying to do here. Get a lot of movements in a short amount of time, all right, while we're still getting that foot to hop up, and we're throwing that elbow to, again, accentuate that transition. The view from the back end. Again, Steve, I'm not going to give Steven a visual command on this. All right, I want him to do this and get better on his own. But right now, again, we're down and back, throwing that elbow and getting that transition in one step. All right, Steven's probably transitioning a little bit too high right now, probably needs to maintain his stance. The ideal goal behind this is I don't want to see the head rise. If anything, I want to see the head fall on this transition. The next functional drill that we're going to work on is the cushion drill. All right, the transition is backward, but now we're doing it visually off a man. Dan will make what we call a man turn, or turning into his man, all right, as he opens. The goal of his cushion right now is he's got to be able to turn when that receiver is within an approximate 3-yard distance, so that receiver cannot get behind him. So he's maintaining his vertical cushion on that receiver. The final part of that is he does want to intersect, ideally, half to a third of his body in front of Steven, basically intercepting him from going vertical, or stopping him from working vertical. So we're not giving him the path to get downfield. We've intersected him. He's got to, if anything, he has to run up our back in order to get vertical. All right, and we have on tape many plays where we have done that position. If he doesn't do that position, he's allowed Steven the opportunity to run past him. So again, roughly a 3-yard cushion. That's based off of the ability of the man and the receiver that he's playing against. Again, we've got to intersect his body. We've got to make that transition tight. We've got to make it a burst. Obviously, the tempo of that drill will increase as we develop that technique. Working against the receiver, we're now going to work on the weave and that transition. Right now, we're going to emphasize 3 weave positions. We're going to have the receiver attack the receiver 3 times in different directions. So what you'll see Dan doing is weaving 3 times to maintain his relationship either inside or outside, wherever he initially started. Again, his hips have to stay square. His movement is still backwards. Arms are tight. Everything is rotating backwards. But again, he's reaching and grabbing grass on an angle. Again, Dan maintains his square relationship, maintains his horizontal relationship. Right now, we're not working vertical relationship right now. It's all horizontal. Next drill we're going to work on is the speed turn, all right? Functionally, we're going to speed turn Dan. Dan is going to speed turn 3 times. The toughest transition we have to teach at times is to make that speed turn when you lose a receiver. And now we're going to try to get him to do it vertically and get there the fastest way he can. Again, it's more of a straight line speed turn than a 45-degree angle speed turn. Again, the idea right there is Dan has got to get the fastest way to find the receiver without losing his vertical cushion. So he's going to spin and lose his vision for a second, but snap his head and eyes around to find the receiver. We do it 3 times again just to exaggerate the drill. Again, it's a drill you can use in the off season to get your players comfortable. You don't need a football, you just need 2 guys working back and forth, all right, and developing that comfort level of getting that transition on a vertical push. Next drill we're going to use is a chop down drill. Basically what Dan visually is going to burn his eyes on Steven's knees to his toes. As those knees sink and chop, his feet should mirror exactly what Steven's doing. So we're training his eyes, and physically, obviously we're training him to sink down with Steven and transition with Steven. Working on back pedal, but again, the main focus of that drill is really to get our players comfortable to where their eyes should be when they're in a man situation. Right now we want to work on 2 types of releases, a dramatic break on the inside and a dramatic break to the outside. All right. The goal for Dan right now as he breaks on that receiver, so the first break being a slant, his goal is to maintain a leverage where he's aiming for the top shoulder of Steven, but what he doesn't want to do is beat the receiver to the reception point. He wants to be able to intersect his body, one half of his body, on one half of Stephen's, just like we did on the vertical release. We're driving down, and again, the intersection should take place where we have half to a third of our body intersecting and half to a third of his body. Let's work it on the coming back. Dan should be aiming again for the top shoulder. As he drives down and brakes, again, doesn't want to brake too far ahead, certainly doesn't want to brake behind. The one time we will allow him to drive to the low shoulder is when he has help in the middle or on top. So there's two types of man techniques. There's one with help and there's one without. We've started to work on the one where we have no help and we have to maintain our vertical leverage, so we're aiming for the top shoulder. Next transition, we will brake on the out. So Stephen's going to demonstrate a banana out, and now we want to do the exact same thing. Again, we want to get our players comfortable right from the get-go in terms of their aiming points. Okay? Typically, the number one mistake that we get defensive backs making when they're braking towards the out is they over-brake to the outside, all right? And that receiver will take the ball, catch it, and either come back or there'll be some type of double move. We want to be slow to brake on the outside move, and again, we want to intersect that receiver so if he's coming back, he's running right through us. Second time. And again, he's got to get that relationship that if Stephen returns his route, all right, that return is coming through me. We'll have time to recover on the sideline tackle if it actually is caught, the football is caught. But right now, again, we want to overemphasize the fact that you cannot over pursue or over break that route.